As your practice grows, how you organize the front desk needs to change, or else it becomes an obstacle to growth. The vast majority of dental offices have a front desk that is a single point for all things administrative in your practice. Scheduling, billing, insurance, phone answering, even financial arrangements are done there. Quite honestly, if you're growing and now have an office manager for this type of office, the only change that he or she is likely to suggest to you is a room for him or her to hide in to avoid the chaos that's going on at the front desk. However, to contemplate what you should do next, you need to think about how the situation occurred in the first place. It's really quite simple. Historically, there was a phone. It actually had a cord, so you couldn't go anywhere. And you had a chart, and you needed to reach it every time you dealt with the patient on the phone. And you had a schedule book, and that got big. And then people mailed you stuff from insurance companies. Oh, yeah. And then there was, the patient. Might as well have them come to you since all the other crap was already there at the desk. So that's what I refer to as phase one. And most offices are still designed as if this is the reality, even today. If you stick with this plan, then you have a couple of layouts, and it's a pretty easy decision process, and we'd be happy to help you with that. But most dental offices worth growing have already evolved at least a little bit beyond this. They split off the stuff coming to and from the insurance companies and the bank and the mail and put that in another room. Let's call that phase two. And we know how to design all the varieties of this office as well. But then what? Well, I hope that you still don't have a stupid schedule book. But here's an unfortunate reality of that situation as well. Most computer schedulers are horrid. I could do a day-long program on this, and doctors need to know that your computer scheduler is costing most of you probably 30% of net revenue. I'm dead serious. But that ship has sailed. There's no book. And remember, there are workarounds for the stupid assumptions that are built into your computer scheduler. So what's good about not having a book? Well, now you can talk about money and the schedule and the treatment plans in private anywhere. So then, in the next phase, consultation moves to a room. It may be the manager's office, the doctor's office, or a dedicated consultation space. That's phase three. We'll have more on this later, but many doctors have found that it is not good enough, and that creates new bottlenecks. Hint, they're correct. Remember, this thinking was still to move the patient through the practice like Henry Ford would have done it on an assembly line, rather than moving the practice around the patient. So what are the kind of things that are happening in a phase 4 practice? Well, when you get to a certain size and a certain amount of intake volume, you realize that you never want a patient to enter your office without a warm, personal, and compassionate greeting. This is the maitre d' function. It's essential at every great restaurant you go to. And a crown can cost 10 times what the cost of a restaurant dinner is. Can we really not budget this function into our practice? And I don't mean just having the person that's at the front desk handling all those other things, turning and saying hello to the patient. I mean a real maitre d'. But there's actually much more to this. Once you fix the problem with lack of personal attention on the intake side, you also need to do the same thing on the outgoing part of the desk. I'd refer to this as phones off the desk. It doesn't mean no phones at the desk necessarily, but rather phones are almost never used at the desk so that any staff that are there are immediately ready to attend to those patients actually in your presence rather than to the virtual ones with annoying questions on the phone. With over 20 chairs in our practice, here's what that means. But remember, we started with small changes to how we interact with the patients long before we got to that size. Phones off the desk is actually what permitted this growth. So that's phase 4. For many offices, that transformation may be enough. But for offices that intend to become the best in town, I'd suggest that you consider a 5th level of this evolution. It's not for everybody. And please remember that we design offices in every one of these other business models that we've discussed, and gladly. But do ponder this next step carefully, because you may just want to design your dental treatment rooms to accommodate this, even though you don't make this workflow change quite yet. Here goes. Be ready to move the team members to the patient rather than the patient to the staff locations. Think about this for a moment, especially regarding new patients. Over half of the revenue for many thriving offices. These patients don't really know their way around your office, even if you show them. And quite honestly, many of your offices are a tangled labyrinth that nobody can figure out how to navigate. People hate feeling lost, and most people hate being trapped in consult rooms. You don't want patients making buying decisions while they feel lost and trapped, do you? So how do you fix this? Well, if your treatment rooms aren't scary, if your treatment rooms aren't noisy, if your treatment rooms create a sense of privacy, if your treatment seating is rather cozy rather than just simply not uncomfortable, if you can comfortably sit with the patient in a natural way when presenting treatment at chairside, then this is without question the best place to have important conversations. But to do that, you must have a structure where your administrative team can flex to chairside. I have a word of caution. We hear 100 different excuses from office administrators and treatment coordinators as why this can't be done. And to be honest, most doctors don't have the vision to see past that objection. Send us your list of objections. We're collecting them for our amusement. But I can assure you about this. People like Dr. Rod Kurthy and Dr. Robert Cialdini have been saying this for a long time. The place to have a comfortable conversation with a patient is where they are now, rather than where you drag them to. So there you have it. 5 levels of front desk evolution. We serve you. We're honored to design whatever type of office you desire. We've done this thousands of times. But do be ready. Growth happens because of change. And as they say, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. Don't be that doctor. Be ready for what's next. Because if you plan for it correctly, it just gets better and better.